Welcome to Last American Vagabond. Joining me today is a very special guest, someone you recently saw in a roundtable discussion with myself in regard to coronavirus and all the different things that are being misrepresented and left out of the conversation. Now, joining me today is Dr. Rashid Buttar to talk about some of the things that he's been bringing to the table in this discussion that the powers that shouldn't be aren't very happy about. And of course, that's what we're seeing as the truth today. At the very least, some critical perspectives that we're supposed to, not be allowed to talk about. So first of all, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
It's good to have you here because I really felt we had a really great conversation last time, and I wanted to try to flesh out some of those topics. And I know you're a very busy man, so I'll try to keep this brief and to the point. So first, I wanted to say that I asked a couple of people around me that are not necessarily involved in the day-to-day news and everything that's going on. And I just simply asked them, a few of them, what if you had to ask Dr. Buttar one question, what would it be? What's on your mind that's really consuming your thoughts? And almost all of them simply said, do we really need to be afraid? Are we being lied to? So to start off today with a pretty broad question, but to kind of let people see where you're at on this, is this real? Is it fake? Can it be some of both? Is there COVID-19 and are people dying from it, right? So what are your thoughts on that first topic?
Well, it's categorically false. Everything has been created to make the largest deception ever against the human race. And it's just amazing to me that so many people can be blind. I just had a letter that was sent to me literally an hour ago from the North Carolina Medical Board by an anonymous complaint, and to their credit, they're not pursuing anything, but the anonymous complaint is so, what's the word? It's so obvious that it's a doctor, and I'm pretty sure I know who the doctor is because he was called out on some of the things that he's been doing. He's one of the people that directly responsible for the epidemic of vaccines and the injuries from vaccines. And he has put out a lot of misinformation about vaccines. But of course, he's got probably $100 million or close to that in revenue that he's generated from vaccines. So he's got a very, very significant conflict of interest and a motivation to be able to promote vaccinations and just basically false information over false information. So the point is that the complaint that came in was anonymous, but it was written. And again, when a doctor writes, especially somebody who's well published, it's pretty clear. And the reason I suspect him is because one, I sent a message out and had a quote from him I basically re-shared it. And he has written a book where he basically had a chapter on me in the book, which I didn't even know who he was at the time. So it's pretty interesting how they can't come out. They're making anonymous complaints, and they're not willing to step out to contest what I'm saying or what many other doctors are now starting to say. They will hide behind their walls, underneath the beds and in the corners in the darkness like cockroaches do, and they won't voice it. So they'll make these subversive type attacks. And this is exactly what's happening on a global scale with the media pushing this agenda, but they're actually hiding the people behind it. They're hiding. So we don't know who they are. They're using YouTube and they're using Google and they're using Facebook for their censorship aspects. They're using the mainstream media to promote their agenda. We don't really know who these people are. Well, I say we don't know, but we really do know because some of those people have been now identified. And at the highest order, it comes back down to the same guy that couldn't keep viruses away from Windows, but he seems to feel that he can keep viruses away from the body. And really, it's a complete misnomer because the virus is not even the issue. So it's misinformation, it's deception, it's diversion, it's distraction. That's what the real issue is. And the danger is not the COVID-19. The danger is the vaccines that are coming down the pipeline and the erosion of the rights of individuals and the orchestration and basically mental preparation, the indoctrination, the desensitization that's required in order to then go to the next level, which is RF chips inserted in you and monitoring where you are and your finances and no more privacy. So these are all the things that are coming down. from a health standpoint, if you just look at it from the health standpoint, I assume, Ryan, you're going to put this out on YouTube. And if you put this out on YouTube, the one word that we can't use, I think you know what it is. It's a number and a letter, because they'll immediately flag it and they'll take it down. But what's coming down from a health perspective is that, in my opinion, based upon the science that I've read and based upon just seeing where all the roads lead, all the rabbit holes lead, it seems to me, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is all to cover up a technology. And as we've talked about before, a technology, a compound, some type of substance, when you start looking from a toxicological standpoint, the infectious disease aspect versus the toxicological aspect, it's always blamed on the infectious disease potential. Why? Because you can't blame anybody on that. But when it comes to a technology, a product, a compound, a chemical, they're never going to find it to be the cause of the issue, because then a corporation, an entity, and a company, an individual, then it's going to be personally responsible for that. And so that they can't afford to have whatever technology or product or substance, whatever it is, they don't want to affect the businesses. They don't want to affect, they don't want to take personal responsibility. They don't want to allow somebody to have to take personal responsibility, especially when it's considered to be in the best interest of the I don't even know really how to say it, except for the globalist agenda. And the globalist agenda is to create the new world order under one government, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want to get into all the political components, because I, one, don't know much about that. And two, it's really irrelevant what the political connotations are. It's the fact that it's not going to impact human lives. I have never gotten involved with the political aspect. I haven't really talked about much of that. It's when it starts to create a mass we're talking about a potential for mass death. That's the only reason that I have spoken out. And I was hoping that others, and somebody would have spoken out before me, but you know, at the same time, it's now finally people are starting to speak out. It all
Right.
comes down to just a big masquerade that's about the COVID-19, and they're using it to cover up the real issue. And the real issue, I believe, is this technology. The technology exacerbates the susceptibility of the immune system and renders it more susceptible to disruption. So there's the voltage gated calcium channels that get disrupted. There's
If I could ask a question real quick before we, because this is very interesting. And I think anyone being honest with themselves right now can see very clearly that at some level, to some degree, we are being lied to. And this is very, very clear. I mean, anyone that's saying otherwise is just, in my opinion, lying, because the evidence is very clear. Now, to what degree, I think, is what everyone's trying to figure out right now. And so what you're saying is, and this is, again, by the way, everyone watching this right now, you no need to mention, everyone knows what we're talking about. I mean, this is, everyone on my channel knows.
I figured.
So the point is, do you feel that this is specific, something that is caught, or is it more than one possible factor involved? More, let's make that more fine-tuned. Specifically, is there actually some kind of a virus playing a part in this, or do you feel that that's the complete cover and there's other factors that are causing it? Because I'm still on the fence about where I feel that lies.
Well, I mean, your question, if you dissect your question, it's interesting. And so it appears that you're also suffering from some cognitive dissonance. And let me support my statement here. You know, you said everybody believes to a certain extent that they're being lied to, but the question is, to what extent? So my question is, if you believe that you're being lied to, why would you even question the extent? The first question is, why are you being lied to, period? Whether it's a little bit or a lot, why would you believe any component? If everybody knows that they're being lied to, but they're trying to determine what extent, that's a problem right there, because you're trying to, that's cognitive dissonance. That's like sticking your head in the sand saying, well, okay, I'm being lied to. I just don't want to know how, I don't know how much, but at that point, it's like saying, well, there's a fire that burned down the trees, but this is just a spark. Well, the spark is what causes the fire that burned down the trees. And
that's so interesting that you say that, because we're always pointing this out on the channel, that if they get you asking the wrong questions, the answers don't matter. And that's right. The thing. That's fantastic. Please continue.
So, and I know that you're an aware and evolved person, and I know that you understand what's going on. So even the fact that you made that statement yourself, to what extent, and perhaps you're saying it for your viewership, I'm not sure, but regardless, I think that's where we have to start first. We have to first start asking questions, and the questions that we have to ask, the logical questions, the questions that are just that even somebody that completely thinks that I am 100% categorically wrong, and that and is sincere about it, is not a paid troll that's going around, because there's a lot of those going around too. It's pretty interesting that they're having to up their game right now, because right now if somebody attacks me, it's interesting on our channels, there's 20, 30 people that pounce on them and dissect them, and they draw and quarter and hang them. And so then my followers are being accused of being cultists, which is interesting. I guess if following the truth and allowing your guidance to be what the frequency that you're feeling, that you're experiencing, that you're resonating with, that if truth resonates. So that's the thing, and it draws other truth seekers. And no matter what somebody says, truth remains the truth. You can call it conspiratorial, you can call it a lie, you can call it this, you can call it that, you can call it whatever you want. It still remains the truth. You can't alter a fact just by relabeling it, right? So the point being that as more and more people are becoming aware of the truth, and I mean, we've had some pretty unbelievable things already starting to happen. The video that Dr. Lipton and I and Nia People sent out last Thursday about shifting the mindset, which was, the only message was hold love and gratitude and compassion in your heart for the rest of the world, and ask for source energy, for the universal consciousness to support us in this transition period, this evolutionary period. That was a message. And there were certain platforms that started censoring that. And even Bruce's wife sent me an email saying, why are they censoring this? I don't understand. And I said, because what they're recognizing and realizing is that we, the people, the world's population, has the ability to change this. And that's what they're scared by. Thoughts are measurable, they're tangible. You can actually measure them outside of the brain, outside of the head. Satellites have picked up on this. They've done studies on this to be able to show that thoughts are actual things that can be measured. Now, if you and I and many other people are starting to think the same way, and we're resonating the same frequency, we can shift the planet. That's exactly what happened this last Sunday. And people keep on asking me, what was supposed to happen Sunday? It's irrelevant. All I can tell you is that it was supposed to be massive. It would have been chaotic. It would have been very disruptive. It would cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. And it didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen is because we changed it. When I say we, I mean we, you, me, and everybody else on the planet that started following those instructions. Those instructions were only for 48 hours, but it was amazing what it did. I've got video footage that was sent to me Monday evening from Russia, from other places in the world, showing the person from Russia that sent me the message said, your message is being heard. We are hearing you. We hear you loud and clear. And there was 1,000 people that assembled, and they had police there trying to break them up, but they wouldn't leave. And they were completely peaceful, but it was potentially volatile. And there are people like right now in Wisconsin that are having mass events, meaning people are showing up and publicly congregating. And so the question you have to start asking is that, why are they threatened by a video that's talking about holding love and gratitude in your heart? Why is the threat there? So that's just a very, very weak type of a question to ask. But of course, that's a logical question to ask. But let me give you some hardcore questions that even the most skeptical people would have to be blind, deaf, stupid, and dead to not be able to say, wait a second, there's something here. So I'll give you those three questions. The first question: why is this virus, this COVID-19? Well, let me back up for a second, Ryan. My son yesterday said to me, he goes, Dad, I've watched some of the videos, but I still don't quite understand. And I knew exactly what he was talking about. So I kind of cut him off and I said, I know what you're saying. He goes, yeah, but let me just ask this question. I said, you're going to ask me, why is it that I'm saying this virus is so deadly and chimeric and blah, 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 and dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. But then I'm saying you don't have to worry about it. And by the way, I didn't say that it was deadly. I said that it was very virulent, and it's a chimeric derivative, et cetera, et cetera. And people can go back and watch all the COVID-19 conspiracy question mark videos. The first two are still on YouTube and Facebook, but the part 3, part 4, and part 5 were taken off YouTube and Facebook after they hit 1 million views in just a couple of days. And part 6 is about to be released in the next few days now. But they can go to the Advanced Medicine platform and they can check in. They can go to askdrbuttar.com/ask, and they'll have access to all those videos. They'll have access to a lot of other resources completely free. There's nothing you can buy. What's interesting, though, is that when my son was asking me this question, he goes, but he nodded his head and goes, yeah, that's the question I have. So if it's a chimeric derivative, it's so virulent, it has the HIV and the MERS orthologs, et cetera, then how can you say that it's nothing to worry about? So I've tried to explain this before. If you were to make it into an analogy with the sex act, this would be like the worst case of premature ejaculation. This is like trying to break the 0 to 60 in 4-second barrier and getting down to 3.5 seconds, and then going for 3 seconds and saying, okay, we can go to 0 to 60 in 2.5. Well, COVID-19 is like 0 to 60 in 0.1 seconds. And it is exactly that. It's that harsh and fast and rapid onset and has no staying power. So 99.99999% of the people on this planet, I believe, have been already exposed to it. But it has no staying power. It doesn't do anything. Most people, it's just going to cause a little bit of a cough, if that. Many people are asymptomatic. And people get so excited about viruses. We are a viral system. Our bodies are based on, if it wasn't for viruses, we'd be dead. Humans would have been extinct hundreds of thousands of years ago. Humans are a viral system. And if it wasn't for viruses, we wouldn't be able to evolve. That's what it basically comes down to, okay? And I'm not going to go into all the theories with the exosomes and all this other aspect, because I mean, there's a lot of people that have been talking about that, and they've got great information out there. But bottom line is, viruses, if you look at Steiner's work, they usually are not they're not what we think in medicine. They are actually a response. They're already inside us. They are actually a response to a toxicological insult, all right? So as I explained to my son, the reason we don't have anything to worry about is because, one, it's man-made, and man screws everything up, and they try to make something that was going to be damaging, but they made something that was rapidly spreading, but isn't really that harsh. And if it is harsh, it's only going to be harsh to those that are immunocompromised. But even those people, it's not that harsh with. What's happening is people with very significant comorbidities are the ones that are actually dying. But the issue here, let me give you these 3 questions first, and then let me give you what you said when you were asking the question about additive. I'll give you the additive effect, because this is a very, very strategically orchestrated and brilliant, in the sense of Hitler was an evil man, but he was brilliant. And this is an evil agenda, but it is brilliant. And I am in awe of how they rolled it out and how they've masqueraded this and set this up for decades to get us to this point. But it is very sinister, and it has nothing to do with protecting people. It has everything to do with depopulation. So, I mean, I'm just coming out and saying it, all right? And the reason is very simple. The first video that we put out, facts versus fiction, COVID-19 conspiracy ? And these were all, the question marks there because I was asking the question. The first one's facts versus fiction. Second video was toxicology ignored. That was the most ignored video as well. And that is the first place that we should be looking at. So toxicity causes a burden on your system, and the burden on your system is now what's the plowing of the field, if you will, to prepare for what's coming. So they're making us toxic so that our immune systems are rendered more susceptible to what's coming down the pipeline. How did they make us toxic? Chemtrails, outgassing, combustion of fossil fuels, what we do to the types of chemicals and insecticides and pesticides and all the different fluorinated hydrocarbons and organophosphates and all these things. So this comes down to, in my 7 toxicity philosophy: first toxicity, heavy metals; second toxicity, persistent organic pollutants; third toxicity is opportunistics. That's what we're talking about. That's the virus, okay? So we'll put that aside for a second. Fourth toxicity is energetics. That's what we were talking about, the letter and the number. Electromagnetic radiation, radio frequency, electromagnetic fields, dirty energy, ambient cell phone radiation, et cetera, et cetera. Fifth one, if there is the one that's more significant than anything else, it's actually this fifth one. That's the emotional psychological aspect. And they've hit us on that, from the fear mongering, stay in your house, social distancing, 6 feet, now 13 feet, et cetera, et cetera. Sixth one is foods. It's not what we're taking into our bodies, but actually what we do to our food substances. Okay, those are the processes such as homogenization, pasteurization, irradiation, genetic modification, et cetera. And the last one is spiritual. They're trying to attack us on a spiritual basis, but that's where they're going to fail. Because spiritual toxicity, they're actually, the first 6 attacks on these first 6 toxicities, they're actually causing people to unite on that spiritual level. So now coming back to the second video was toxicology ignored. Third one was corrupted science. The third one is where I talk about the chimeric derivative, okay, the coronavirus and what they did to it and how they made the COVID-19. Fourth video that got now part 4, which was also one of the ones that got censored on YouTube and Facebook. So part 3 got censored in part 4 and part 5. Part 4 was on this technology and immunity, what that technology does to the immune system. All right. Part 5 was deceptive agenda, which is sort of what we're talking about right now. Part 6 is going to be about empowering yourself. So now you want to know what a couple of different parts. What could, is it just one thing or is it other things? Well, there are other things. So it's 1, toxicity. 2, is this technology. 3, it's the fear aspect of fear mongering. And all 3 of those things, guess what they do? All of them suppress your immune system. All 3 of them cause your body not to function correctly. It affects everything from cell membrane integrity, adjusts the morphological structure of the cell membranes, and disrupts voltage-gated calcium channels, to creating increase in cortisol output and suppression of the immune system. It increases what we call the sympathetic-mimetic drive, the sympathetic tone in the body, the flight-fight response. So your body's in a constant state of stress. You increase peripheral vascular resistance, so the heart has to overcome more peripheral vascular resistance in order to be able to perfuse the body. It's a whole cascade of physiological things that occur. But if you want to put them all together in one package, this is an assault on global consciousness, is what this is. Because they want to shut everybody down, shut them away. We're herd animals. You put people in separation and isolation, that's not good for the human psyche. They've already done studies with monkeys that are in social isolation. Punishment in jails is to put people into social isolation or put them into isolation. You've seen that from the movies when they throw somebody in jail and that they get punished for 10 days or 30 days and put them in isolation, and what that does to the mind. And then now they're saying that they want to basically increase this isolation by having family members tattletale on other family members if they do something that can be potentially socially shaming, right? Or that can be construed as it's not safe for the public. And it's just ridiculous what they're doing by breaking down even the family unit. So
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to go ahead and ask a question. I was going to say that I want to come back to these simple questions that people should be asking, that even the most skeptical person is going to go with. So
go ahead. You had built up to that. Go ahead and please finish, because that's interesting. Go ahead.
So the biggest skeptics, I would want them to ask this question themselves and then answer it. So this chimeric derivative of this naturally occurring virus that's been around since 1968, why do they have patents on the new altered chimeric version? And who owns those patents, and to what end? Why would you want to have a patent on a virus? Not a treatment, but on the virus itself. And this is historically a consistent thing. H1N1 had patents, and certain of Zika, I believe, had patents. I know that COVID-19 has patents, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the questions they should be asking. Second, if this virus was so dangerous and so devastating and so threatening to the world, then why is it this virus that was released in Wuhan, that everybody says it's a bioweapon, China, this, that, and the other, and people are forgetting? Stop looking at China. That's another diversion, right? Whether China released on purpose or accidentally, that has nothing to do with how we in the United States and other parts of the world have reacted to it. Again, that's blaming on something else and not looking at the facts. So why was this virus that was supposedly a bioweapon released from Wuhan, went to Iran and Italy, and then came to New York and made New York the epicenter of the world? I mean, was this virus educated to know that, hey, guys, you the virus, just jump over Beijing and jump over Shanghai and then just go to New York? I mean, how absurd is this, that it's completely bypassed the 2 largest cities in a nation that has 1/3 of the world's population, or maybe at least 1/3 of the world's population, 2 billion people, bypassed Shanghai and Beijing and then came to New York? So nobody's asking that logical question. They're so enamored with this BS and diversion, they don't ask the logical question.
What do you think that suggests?
I mean, it's a lie. That's what it suggests.
Well, I mean, in the sense of
lie.
if there's a lot of factors in that discussion, because there's evidence now showing that it might have started as early as November or before, things like that. So do you think that suggests that it had started elsewhere before it was there, or that?
My question is, why didn't Shanghai shut down? Why didn't they have mass hospitals and people getting sick and businesses shutting down? Nothing shut down in Shanghai. Nothing shut down in Beijing. It's right there, 1,500 kilometers. We're 15,000 kilometers away in New York. So that's never, I mean, to me, if a person doesn't ask that question,
right,
it's cognitive dissonance. I mean, they're just ignoring the logical components. Okay. Yeah. If it's so dangerous and you need to be socially isolated, 6 feet apart, but planes are still flying. You think if people are sitting 6 feet apart, 3 rows apart, I mean, it's ludicrous. Grocery food stores. And where are the masses of death? Because, it's happening here and it's happening there. Then why are doctors getting laid off? Why are nurses being furloughed? Why are hospitals totally dead? Why are ambulances parked and paramedics playing cards? There's more people that are idle and being laid off in the healthcare profession than ever before, and people aren't asking that question. Why is mainstream media taking footage from one hospital and perpetrating it over multiple hospitals? Why are they taking people and saying this person died, and then that same person died somewhere else in the country with different credentials and different name, but the same picture, same image, but they died of COVID-19? I mean, now people are saying, they've got memes of a person being thrown out of a plane without a parachute on, they died of COVID-19. Somebody got shot in the head, they died of COVID-19. You have a heart attack, you died of COVID-19. It's the most ludicrous thing. Death certificates are being altered. The mandate from the CDC, if somebody has a respiratory condition, you first put down COVID-19. Why, as a cause of death? Why is that? Is anybody asking that question? Because they're trying to elevate the numbers to justify what they've done. Because they don't have the numbers. And even with the synthetic elevation of the numbers, guess what? It still doesn't match the seasonal flu.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you what's going to happen. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say exactly, which is what which is as of today, which seems to be kind of even the mainstream in some parts is grudgingly accepting that
they're not grudgingly accepting it. They're trying to ridicule people. I tore into Anderson Cooper and CNN last night because they were attacking the mayor of Vegas, who said that we're opening up and that this isn't China. They called her ignorant. She said this isn't China. And there was so many idiots that responded that she should be arrested. She's putting people at harm. And I pretty much laid into all this. I mean, I don't even know how to tweet really. And I just did what I thought. And, it's got like over 1,000 retweets and some of that stuff. And the bottom line is, again, people need to just wake up and pull their head out of their fourth point of contact, like we used to say in the military, and just start thinking for yourself. Start asking these questions. Okay, let me ask you this next question, okay? We're so worried about this virus, and nobody's asking the question, what does fear do to a person? And why would we allow ourselves, let's say COVID-19 was really this bad. Let's say it truly was as bad as they've desperately tried to make it out to be. How does that justify throwing every aspect of science away and ignoring it? Because that's what they've done. That's what the scientific and the medical community have done. They've discarded it. They have literally discarded it. And what do I mean by discarded the basic premises of science? Well, if the goal is that we know that this is supposedly a virus that's very damaging, okay, let's use that as a premise. And the more susceptible your immune system is, we know that from now numerous different studies that it's the elderly that are being affected, people that have other comorbidities, that have diseases. In fact, even Italy, they said that 99% of the people that died of COVID-19 had other major underlying health problems and challenges and sickness. They had a lot of the comorbidity was sky high. I mean, 99% of the people died of something else, not of COVID-19. But let's just say that it was COVID-19. Okay, let's just say, how does that justify, hey, put a mask on to protect yourself? I want to understand that. That is the most ludicrous thing I have ever heard. First, when a surgeon or a nurse wears a mask in an operating room, they're not doing it to protect themselves. What are you worried about? Why would a doctor put on a mask when they're in a surgical suite? It's not to protect themselves when they're doing open heart surgery or replacing a knee. It's so that they don't drool and spit and speak and particulate matter spits into the surgical field. So you're doing it to protect the sterile field. You're not doing it to protect yourself. Okay, why do people in the Far East sometimes wear masks? It's not to protect themselves. It's to keep themselves from spreading something that they have, and they don't want to get other people sick. We've taken a mask and completely turned it on its head and said to protect yourself. That's one idiocy. Let's show the greater idiocy. When you put something in front of your mouth, what do you breathe? Brian, what do you, as a human being, what do you breathe in? What do you need for life that if I took away from you in 60 seconds, you'd be dead, or 2 minutes, you'd be dead? What is that?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Now, if you put something over your mouth, you're going to restrict the flow of oxygen. And if you restrict the flow of oxygen, then that elicits a cortisol response, a stress response, because you're having to suck oxygen through a mask. That's going to increase your cortisol, your stress hormones, which is immunosuppressive. That's why steroids are immunosuppressive. That's one reason when a person has a transplant of an organ, they give them immunosuppressive drugs so that the immune system doesn't flare up and attack the new organ. So they want to shut down the immune system. Okay, so steroids shut down the immune system. When you have an increase in cortisol, guess what it does? Shuts down the immune system, makes it, suppresses it, renders it more susceptible to environmental potential toxins and infectious agents. Remember, this is COVID-19. It's supposed to be this dangerous virus. But what we're telling people to do is put on a mask to reduce your oxygen, to increase your sympathetic mimetic drive, to put you into the fight-fight response on a chronic level every time you're outside or anytime you're concerned. And then what does that do? It's going to make your body more susceptible to anything, any kind of pathogen. All right. Let's go to the next level. If you've got a mask on and everybody's carrying virus, we all have viruses, it's going to cause the viruses to express more because of the stress on the system. Viruses are released during stress periods. Somebody gets a viral infection, if their bodies are run down, they're more susceptible to it, right? If a person's well-nourished, well-hydrated, very rarely does a person get sick from a virus. Now, they can get a bacterial infection. You know, they can get a secondary bacterial infection if they weren't well hydrated. So you get a viral infection, then that leads to a bacterial infection. But viral infections occur when people are susceptible, when they're stressed out, they're not well hydrated, they haven't rested enough, they're poor nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. Well, guess what? What's the fastest way to reduce somebody's, to stress them out is to have them wearing a damn mask that's going to slow down their ability to exchange that oxygen, carbon dioxide, which is how we were designed to function.
In addition to everything else that you laid out since we've been talking, right? All the points that you laid out and everything all combining to create exactly what we're talking about here. Now, exactly. I know that you're short for time in general today, and I have a lot of things that I wanted to try to get to. So maybe there's some of them that I feel like we can jump over. But I wanted to maybe touch for a moment on something you had said in the previous roundtable, where you had talked about the idea of ultimately, because right now there's a lot of discussion about where this started, which seems to be premature. I think we can all admit to some degree, but you had a discussion about no matter where it came from or where we first noticed it, that the U.S. is tied to this thing from creation sense. I wanted you to elaborate on that. I didn't want to interrupt people in the last round table. What did you mean by that? How did you mean that they're ultimately behind this either way?
Well, either way have you ever played chess before?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you know what a forced checkmate is?
I don't.
So forced checkmate is, it doesn't matter what your opponent does at that point, it's the game's over, right? Gotcha. So you see the three moves, no matter which, the person can have three options. They can do one of three moves, but it's a forced checkmate because whatever you do, I'm going to put you in checkmate. And that's basically what I'm saying when I'm talking about that they were behind it. No matter how you paint this picture, no matter who you try to blame it on, the complicitness of creating this mass global pandemic had nothing to do with China, had nothing to do with anyone else except for those that were in control of the narrative here in the United States. It doesn't make any difference how you blame it or who you blame it on. They know the numbers, but they still went with it. Now, I think that there's a hidden war there's a hidden war that's occurring right now that we're not privy to, that we, the people, the public, is not privy to. And I think this comes back to the orchestration. I think the agenda is maybe those that want sovereignty versus those that have a global agenda, a globalist agenda. And unless somebody doesn't understand what I mean by that globalist agenda, that's the, unifying all the countries and under one currency and one, whatever that is. I think that what happened, if I'm just going to give you my opinion, I can't prove this, but I'm just going to give you my opinion. It appears to me that the media's false narrative over the last 3 years, I am not a Trump supporter and I'm not a Trump attacker. I'm not a Trump hater. I think Trump is probably in many ways his own worst enemy, but the truth is the truth. As I said, I didn't vote for Trump when he ran for president. I did not vote for him. I voted for George W. Bush the first time. I've met with Bush during that term. I was part of his heavy metal task force of the 12 doctors that he assigned to that process, or his administration did. I did not vote for George W. Bush the second time. All right. So people would say I was a Republican, but then I became reformed. No, I don't believe that. I just voted for who I thought was the best person. Obama came, I voted for him. Some of my family were ecstatic. Okay. They said, "Oh, you're finally a Democrat." No, I'm not a Democrat. I thought he was the best person for the country. I did not vote for him again. So both Republican, I voted first time and didn't vote for him second time. Democrat, same thing. I did not vote for Trump. I will be voting for Trump this time because he has basically been attacked in every front, and he has still accomplished more than the last 4 presidents together. Now, that's what I believe. People can, attack me on that. That's fine. The problem is I don't care what somebody's opinion is. I don't care what my opinion is. I only care what the facts are. And when you start looking at the facts, the misalignment of what the media said. For example, they've called Trump a racist and said that his immigration policies show he's a racist. Now, look, I'm a first-generation immigrant, all right? There's nothing racist about what he said. In fact, he was the one who was trying to get Congress to pass a bill that if foreigners come to the United States to study, we should give them immediate green card status so that they can stay in the United States and help to contribute to the United States economy, as opposed to saying that, no, you can't stay here and sending them back. Does that sound like what a racist president would do? But that's what he was pushing for. But the media didn't report that. They totally changed it. And they said, no, he's trying to keep immigrants out of the country. He's not trying to keep immigrants out of the country. He's doing what every freaking president should have done. What is the point of having a law if you're going to ignore it? All he's saying is legal immigration. And I agree with that. Why are you saying that these illegal people that are coming in, that are breaking the law, you're rewarding undesired behavior? If you're going to let these illegal people come in here and say they can stay, then why have the damn immigration law in the first place? And what's their incentive for people that are coming in legally, like my parents did, for them to come in that way? Now, you think that that's unjust? If you think that's unjust, then the person should go and move out of the United States. It's simply saying that this is the law and we're adhering to the law. You don't like it, then change the law. But to call him a racist, that's just not fair. It's not true. And he may have his own problems and he may be his own worst enemy, but you know what? It's still not right what the media's been doing. And they've been lying and lying and lying. And I can give you a dozen examples like this.
Yeah. I mean, I think my audience is well aware of the fake news aspect to all mainstream media at this point. I mean, we can all agree that they're lying and misrepresenting damn near everything that's going on. But what I like about what you're doing, and I think what's so important about this topic in general, is, as you said when we started, that it's not political, right? That politics shouldn't even play a factor in this discussion. It's about the truth and about what we're dealing with. And what I find is that the left versus right dynamic actually stops people from seeing the full picture.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
what's so frustrating.
And that's what they're trying to push, that agenda, because then they'll push the agenda of this division when they have to realize, everybody has to realize that as long as they are successful in dividing us, we will not be able to accomplish the power that we need. And more people are coming together. I mean, I've heard that the unison. I've had people on the opposite side now asking the right questions and asking me, and they're desperately trying to understand this, and they're starting to see the picture. And I think that's the reason that took it to this level, because they're in a death struggle is what they're in, Ryan. They're desperate, and they just took it to the next extreme. I don't think this was all necessarily planned out. And then you see the Fauci video from Georgetown University in 2017 saying that there's going to be a surprise pandemic. He didn't, I mean, I got to go find his crystal ball. I got to see if I can buy a crystal ball as accurate as his, but they knew it. And then you start looking at all these different components and how this has been orchestrated from a long time ago. It starts to make you realize that this is a war on humanity. It's a war on consciousness that has to be risen to, because if we don't rise to it, if we don't do what we need to do, which I think we're making great strides, but we need to remember that the consequence, if we don't do what we are supposed to do, because if you don't evolve when the time of change occurs, if you don't evolve, what happens? You become extinct. And that's what I'm fighting for. That's what my message is, that people need to wake up and start asking these right questions and peacefully assembling. In fact, we've got the Advanced Medicine Conference that was scheduled back in October of 2019 that's supposed to occur on May 23rd, May 24th, and 25th. And we have not canceled it. And now we're 1 month away, and we're not going to start letting the world know we're not canceling it. We are going to have this conference, and we may end up streaming it at we haven't decided. We may end up streaming it, but basically, if somebody comes to the live event, you're going to get 60%, 50%, something. You're going to get most of that money back. You're going to, at least half of that money you're going to get back. Why? Because we want people to understand and recognize that your grasp of your own autonomy and recognizing the truth and coming and being present physically, one, you're going to experience something that you've never experienced before, because the first one conference we did, it, you know, people can go to advancedmedicineconference.com. I'm just going to put a plug out there for the conference, if that's okay, Ryan. They can go to Advanced Medicine Conference and learn more about that and see who the speakers are going to be. But more importantly than that, the energy that you get when you're like-minded individuals, we all know is phenomenal. And the first event was incredible. This event, if somebody's really concerned about COVID-19, this is where they need to be so they can see what the real truth is. And we have presenters coming in from all over the world. In fact, when they started doing the economical shutdown, and I put a message out saying that we're not canceling the conference, I had 3 responses from 3 of the different speakers from 2 different countries that basically said, blessings to you, thank you for not, you know, believing this BS, because we all know that it's BS. And these are, you know, these are scientists and doctors, they all know, but at the same time, they don't want to necessarily be the one that speaks out because they don't want the ramifications. And I can understand that, but more doctors are starting to speak out now. I mean, literally, I mentioned the medical board. They're not going to, they've said they're not going to do anything about it, but it's an anonymous complaint. So there's that kind of risk that people are afraid that, well, if I say something, then I'm going to get attacked. So I'll just keep my mouth shut. And I know it's BS, but I'm just not going to say anything. And I'm telling people now, it's time for everybody to start speaking out, make the effort, you know, organize. Why is social media now saying that if you try to use social media to arrange a group gathering to protest, we're going to shut you down? I mean, that's censorship to the max. I mean, that's an infringement on our freedom of speech. Freedom of speech gives us the freedom to assemble, and they're impeding on that. So those are the types of questions that I want people to ask. Those are the types of questions that I think help us to go from the state of cognitive dissonance to the state of saying, wait a second, to the state of, I have to do something, to the state of, this is about my children, my grandchildren, my future generations, the future of the humanity as a whole. And then hopefully wake them up to be able to take some type of action, whatever that action is.
Absolutely. And very well said. And, you know, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. To, you know, I just want people to be able to see your full unadulterated perspective, you know, because there's so much going on today and so much politics involved in everything. Now, I had a whole bunch of other things that I thought we might be able to get into. Maybe we can connect again after you're done with your interviews, tours over the last so many weeks, and, you know, we can revisit these. But to end today, I'll let you kind of just, you know, pick on which one. You know, we were going to get into the idea of testing and the misrepresentation thereof and the many things in that, manipulations of the numbers, deaths, and you mentioned the placebo thing, even vaccines. So what do you think is the most important thing here, just to kind of finish off with us today?
I've said this so many times, and it's all over the internet now. It's the same thing. I mean, you know, I've explained the numbers. I've explained many of these things. In fact, my suggestion would be, no matter what you do, no matter what I do, you really need to go through all those videos, the COVID-19 videos. And that's what this started, right? That's what went viral. The first video, we had, I don't know, 65,000 shares. I mean, my Facebook profile at that time was only 20,000, 25,000 people. And we had over 1 million views, and was shared 65,000 times. And that started. And then the second one, third one. I mean, by the third one, you know, in a day and a half, 2 days, over 1 million views, and boom, YouTube shut it down. Facebook shut it down. And that's what they started doing. Now, you can't get this information in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. If you really want to understand it, I would really highly suggest to your viewers to watch the COVID-19 conspiracy videos. And you can get those, watch them all. You can watch the first 2, as I said, on YouTube or Facebook, but then the rest of them you need to get to advancedmedicine.com. There's nothing to pay. Just go to askdrbuttar.com/ask. If you do that, you will have, it'll ask for a couple of questions, and to make sure that we're not going to, that we're basically getting people that are wanting to help. And so there's a questionnaire that if you want to participate and help, or you want to get organized, then you would submit your information there. And then from there, it takes you to a page. It tells you where you can watch the entire Truth About Vaccine series completely for free. It's going on right now. That's for a limited time, but you can watch every one of those videos. It shows you about the head map tool, which is, again, a free tool. I'm not going to go through all the details. You can, look at it if you want. It gives you access to creating your free dashboard in advanced medicine, which is where Aaron Jin's article that has been censored by multiple sources now. There was a great article that talks about, it's called the COVID-19 hysteria, very scientifically done, paper, but it was banned. So it's available there for download. There's all five of the COVID-19 conspiracy videos are there. Again, there's nothing. It doesn't cost you a dime, but it gets you all the resources. If somebody says, "No, just give me the meat and potatoes of it," they're not doing themselves justice. Okay, even my own family members have said that, and I'm like, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to do that because I know what's going to happen. Then it's going to ask another 17 questions, and the best thing to do is start with the story. You know, it's like trying to get the highlights of a story and then thinking that you're going to get the full value of the story. Read each chapter and understand it. Part 6 and Part 7 are coming out hopefully in the next couple of days. They've already been recorded, and that's the best thing that I can suggest for people to truly understand what this fiasco is all about. And I was in the same place in the beginning. I mean, I understood the human physiology aspect and the virology aspect, and I didn't quite understand why they were making such a big deal of it. But I thought, okay, maybe there's something I don't know. But as I went down the rabbit hole and I started seeing, and the dots were all connecting, and the picture finally got painted, which was like, what in the world is going on? This is the greatest hoax that's ever been committed. And one last thing I want to say, Ryan, is that the people that have died in New York, and the people that died in Italy, and the people that died in Iran, and the people that died in Wuhan, when you look at the genomic sequence of the virus, it's different. So it's not the same component anyway. But the most important thing is the mechanism of injury, what these people are showing. They are not presenting like any type of viral injury that I have ever seen, that any other doctor's ever seen. This is a hypoxic injury. It looks like altitude sickness. And I believe it's directly 100% correlated with that technology we're talking about, because that is the next component. How many people that have died of COVID-19, how many people, this is another one of those questions, how many of those people had the H1N1 flu shot, had the trivalent flu shot, had the covalent flu shot, had herpes zoster, the shingles shot, all these different vaccines? We have no idea. And people say, well, I didn't hear about this one, doctor, this just shot. I don't know about it. I just know that the trivalent, the covalent flu shots, both are in the studies that have been done, showed that people are testing positive for COVID-19, even though they have never had exposure to it. They've been injecting all sorts of crap in us. Well, that can't be possible. How can you say that, Dr. Buttar? You know how I can say that? Because formaldehyde, nickel, mercury, the second most toxic substance known to man, has been injected into vaccines for decades. DNA adducts, mutated human cell lines, cross-species viruses and proteins from other animals, dog brains and monkey kidneys and all sorts of weird stuff. But why are we putting mutated human cell lines and all these other DNA adducts in these vaccines? You don't think they could have slipped something else in there that's not that they planned this out? If Fauci knew in 2017 that this was going to happen, and it's been predicted, there were other people that were predicting this all the way back to 1981. There were predictions in the Farmer's Almanac that there was going to be a massive pandemic in 2020. How did they know this? Somebody knew this. It's all been orchestrated. It's all been planned out. So people, ask the right question, open your eyes, open your mind, and I hope to God, my son and I were talking about this yesterday, and he knows certain things. He was very emotional about it, and he's not worried about the medical aspect because he knows, from the health standpoint, he's not worried. He's worried about the financial catastrophe that his extended family and close friends are going to experience, because he studies the markets, and he and I have been talking about this. He was very, very concerned about this, and he said to me, Dad, this is brilliant what they've done, but it's so devastating, and I'm losing faith in mankind. And I told him, I said, never lose faith in the Creator. We don't have to have faith in mankind. We just have to have faith in the Creator. But remember that we all have a brain, and we need to start using it. And that's all. If you open your eyes and you open your mind and just ask the question, and then have a healthy sense of desire for truth and observation. Don't allow your preconceived notions to dictate what you're going to believe. And remember the definition of cognitive dissonance. It's because there's a fear that if I accept this new belief system that basically contradicts everything that I've learned, then I have to now question all my beliefs, and therefore I will just shut this belief system down because it's more convenient, and I don't have to now question everything else that I've learned. And it's those people that open their eyes, open their mind, and start looking at the facts, and then allowing their own conclusion to form their new belief. Or if it's the same belief after you've looked at it from an objective standpoint, then fine. But it's your own decision. It's your own intellectual, it's appealing to your own intellectual integrity. It's resonating with you. If whatever that is, that's the truth. That's your truth. And go with that. And I can almost virtually guarantee that anybody who approaches this objectively and looks at it without any preconceived notions and is willing to challenge themselves, they will come to the same conclusion.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for being here today and diving into all of this. I'll make sure and include your full series and the videos and the show notes for everyone to check out, because as he said, guys, no interview like this is going to encapsulate all the information he presents in these videos. So I hope you will go through and check them out for yourselves. And as we mentioned in the roundtable to end today, one of these, kind of overarching points of all of this is the constitutional issues that we're dealing with here. The fact that all of this, whatever you think, is being used to remove things from you that they don't have the right to remove. And we have to stand up for it now before it's simply too late. So thank you. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Buttar. I really appreciate you being here. And as always, as Dr. Buttar himself said, everybody question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
to